Jasmine Crockett's wristwatch read 8:42 a.m. when she parked in the lot outside the Dallas, Texas City Courthouse. The early morning sunlight filtered through her car's windshield, casting long streaks of light across the asphalt, and Jasmine sighed softly. She hated being late. As a lawyer, she always prioritized punctuality and thorough preparation, but today, nothing seemed to go her way. It was a morning like any other. She was there to resolve an unfair traffic ticket for her cousin, a small matter that meant a lot to their family in Oak Cliff. She had carefully reviewed the documents to prove the ticket was a mistake. The family home in Oak Cliff wasn't just a place to live, it was a repository of cherished childhood memories, where she was taught integrity and strength through the stern love of her kin. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. In her navy suit and crisp white shirt, Jasmine exuded the confident poise of a seasoned lawyer, though this morning was anything but pleasant. An urgent call from a client in a Black Lives Matter case had delayed her. The opposing side had sent a last-minute request, and Jasmine couldn't ignore it. She had to review it carefully and provide guidance before rushing to court, knowing she was racing against time. She found a seat near the back, just as Judge Edgar Thornton's sharp voice rang out, "Jasmine Crockett." Jasmine stood, briefcase in hand, but before she could speak, Thornton squinted. "You're late, Miss Crockett," he said, his tone heavy with bias, "and that's unacceptable. The court fines you $750 for contempt." The word contempt hit like a slap, silencing the courtroom. Jasmine felt eyes from all directions, curious, scrutinizing. "Your Honor," she began, her voice calm, "I was delayed by an urgent civil rights case. If I may explain." Thornton raised a hand, his gaze cold. "No excuse justifies tardiness. Sit down." Jasmine pressed her lips together, suppressed anger rising. She returned to her seat, catching a glimpse of Nathan Reed, a white defendant, quietly slipping in later than her. Thornton glanced at him, but said nothing, moving to the next case. Nia Jackson, a young law student nearby, scribbled notes with a stunned expression. Carla Ruiz, the court clerk, paused typing for a second, as if sensing something amiss. Derek Vaughn, the bailiff, stood still by the door, his face impassive. Jasmine opened her phone, fingers moving quickly. "Thornton fined me $750. No explanation heard. White defendant late. No fine." Her lawyer's instincts told her this wasn't random. She glanced at Malik Turner, a black defendant clutching papers tightly, and Rosa Morales, a nervous Latina woman. She opened her phone, fingers swiftly adding details. "Thornton fined me for being 5 minutes late. No explanation heard. Reed, 7 minutes late. No fine." Thornton's tone, scornful with me, gentle with Reed. She looked up, watching Thornton handle the next case. Malik Turner, a black man in his 30s, stood at the podium, hands gripping his papers. He was accused of a minor traffic violation, a $50 ticket. Thornton squinted, his voice harsh. "What evidence do you have to justify your actions, Mr. Turner?" Malik began explaining, his voice slightly shaky, that the traffic light system was faulty, and he had photos from the scene. But Thornton cut him off, shaking his head. "Photos aren't enough. You should have been more careful. Fined $200, plus court fees." Malik froze, shoulders slumping, as he returned to his seat. Jasmine noted, "Turner, $50 ticket. Fined $200. Thornton interrupted, didn't review evidence. She caught Malik's desperate glance as he passed, as if he knew he had no chance. Next was Rosa Morales, a Latina woman with neatly tied hair, standing at the podium to dispute a wrongful parking fee. Rosa explained, her voice tinged with anxiety, that she'd paid through an app, but the system recorded it incorrectly. She offered her phone, but Thornton waved it off. "I don't have time for this mess. Fined $150. Pay today." Rosa tried to speak, but Thornton banged his gavel. "Done." Jasmine wrote, "Morales, system error, had evidence, fined $150. Thornton didn't look. She glanced at Nathan Reed, the white man who'd arrived late. Thornton called him up for a speeding ticket, worth a $100 fine. Reed smiled lightly, his tone casual. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I was in a rush that day. Thornton nodded, his voice softening. I understand, we all have those days. Reduced to $50. Be careful next time. Reed thanked him, and walked off, pleased. Jasmine noted, Reed speeding, worth $100. Reduced to $50. Thornton smiled, listened fully. The disparity was stark, like an open ledger Thornton had carelessly revealed. Jasmine felt her blood heat, but she forced herself to focus. She scanned the courtroom, noticing other eyes watching. Nia Jackson, the young law student a few seats away, scribbled furiously, her expression a mix of shock and anger. Carla Ruiz, the clerk, typed slower than usual, occasionally glancing at Thornton with concern. Derek Vaughn, the bailiff by the door, kept his face neutral, but his hand clenched briefly when Thornton banged his gavel again. Jasmine took a deep breath, her mind racing as it did when preparing a major civil rights case. She recalled her days as a public defender in Bowie County, standing up for people like Malik and Rosa, people crushed by the system because of their skin or circumstances. A memory flashed, the face of a young client, wrongly convicted, because no one would listen. Not today, she told herself, fingers tightening on her pen. Thornton might think he held power, but he didn't know who he was up against. She kept noting, each line a piece of the puzzle. Thornton interrupted Turner. Morales, listen to Reed. Case times. Turner, 2 minutes. Morales, 3 minutes. Reed 5 minutes. She realized this wasn't just unfair to her. It was a pattern, a system Thornton ran with blatant bias. Nia glanced at her, eyes asking, what will you do? Jasmine gave a subtle smile, the smile of someone who knew she was about to change the game. The courtroom continued, Thornton calling the next defendant, but Jasmine was no longer a bystander. She began sketching a plan in her mind, confront Thornton, gather evidence, and bring this to light. As the trial flowed with its familiar rhythm, another stream of thought quietly consumed Jasmine. Her phone notes, each line about Judge Edgar Thornton's bias, were forming an indictment. Malik Turner was harshly fined for a minor error. Rosa Morales' evidence was dismissed, while Nathan Reed was shown leniency with just a smile. The injustice was so blatant, it almost taunted her. And Jasmine, with over a decade as a civil rights lawyer, knew this wasn't the time to stay silent. She took a deep breath, her sharp gaze following Thornton as he banged his gavel, calling the next case. She stood, briefcase in hand, her voice calm, but resolute. Your Honor, Jasmine began, stepping toward the podium. I request to address my matter. Thornton squinted, clearly unaccustomed to such a move. You had your chance, Miss Crockett, he said, his tone icy. This court doesn't revisit. But Jasmine didn't back down. I'm not asking to revisit, Your Honor. I'm asking about fairness. Why am I, and Mr. Turner penalized for being late, while others aren't? The courtroom fell deathly silent, as if the air had been sucked out. Nia Jackson, the young law student, stopped writing, her eyes wide. Malik Turner looked up from his seat, his shoulders tensing as if he'd found a glimmer of hope. Carla Ruiz, the clerk, stopped typing, her hands frozen over the keyboard. Derek Vaughn, the bailiff, glanced at Thornton, his expression still neutral, but his eyes flickering. Thornton's face reddened, his hands gripping the gavel. Are you questioning me in my own courtroom, Miss Crockett? He growled. That's contempt. I could increase your fine right now. Jasmine held his gaze, unflinching. Your Honor, I respect the law. But the law must be fair to everyone, she said, her voice steely, carrying the cadence she used in major trials. I was fined $750 for being 5 minutes late. Mr. Turner was heavily penalized for a minor error, but another defendant, later than me, faced nothing. I'm only asking for an explanation. She deliberately didn't name Nathan Reed, but her glance toward him ensured Thornton understood. Thornton banged his gavel, the sound echoing as if to drown her out. Enough, he shouted. This court operates on order, not emotion. You have no right to accuse me of how I run it. Sit down, or I'll fine you more for contempt. his face flushed crimson, his voice trembling, not with fear, but with rage at being challenged publicly. Jasmine stood still for a moment, weighing her options. She knew pushing too far could lead Thornton to punish the entire room, but silence meant accepting injustice. She tilted her head slightly, a gesture both respectful and defiant. "I understand, Your Honor," she said, her voice low but clear, "but justice isn't just rules, it's fairness. I'll return to my seat, but I asked the court to note that I requested an explanation." She walked back, feeling everyone's eyes, from Nia's astonishment to Malik's subtle nod. Thornton cleared his throat, trying to regain authority, calling the next case with a harsher tone than usual. Sitting down, Jasmine opened her phone, fingers flying. Thornton dismissed fairness question, threatened more fines. Reaction: angry, banged gavel hard. She knew she'd planted a seed, however small, in that room. Nia, a few seats away, wrote faster, her eyes gleaming as if she'd witnessed history. Carla Ruiz glanced at her, a fleeting look that told Jasmine the clerk knew something, and wasn't fully on Thornton's side. Jasmine looked at Malik, his eyes now brighter, as if her words had given him a spark of hope. Rosa Morales, though still anxious, sat a bit straighter. Thornton might think he controlled the courtroom, but Jasmine sensed a shift, a quiet energy spreading among those he'd oppressed. She recalled a case in Bowie County, facing another arrogant judge, and winning by forcing the truth into the open. This time too, she told herself. She drafted a short email on her phone to a colleague in Dallas. "Need urgent help. Suspect racial bias at city court. Will send details." Thornton called the next defendant, but Jasmine was no longer an observer. She added, "Courtroom tense after question." Thornton lost composure. Each word was a bullet, and she knew she was building a case far bigger than her cousin's ticket. Judge Edgar Thornton, after Jasmine questioned his obvious bias, why she and Malik Turner faced harsh penalties, while Nathan Reed was let off lightly, he dismissed it outright. Coldly, Thornton not only refused to answer, but threatened to increase the fine, then banged his wooden gavel hard, as if to end all debate. But Jasmine wasn't one to back down easily. The email she'd just sent to a colleague, listing recent unfair rulings, was only the beginning. Now, she knew she needed to act bigger. Thornton might believe he controlled the courtroom, but he hadn't realized he'd just provoked someone who didn't know fear. The court recessed, the stifling air easing as a few defendants left the room, whispering. Nia Jackson, the young law student, glanced at Jasmine with curious eyes, her pen still racing across her notebook. Malik Turner sat motionless, hands clutching his papers, his gaze a mix of hope and doubt. Carla Ruiz, the clerk, typed slowly, occasionally eyeing Thornton, as if weighing something. Derek Vaughn, the bailiff, stood by the door, but Jasmine caught his fingers clenching briefly, a small sign of unease. When Thornton returned to the bench, banging his gavel to resume, Jasmine stood, briefcase in hand, and stepped forward. "Your Honor," she said, her voice calm but resonant, "I request to speak again." Thornton squinted, visibly annoyed. "Miss Crockett, I told you your part is done," he growled. "Don't waste the court's time." But Jasmine didn't waver, her eyes locked on his, like a lawyer, ready to deliver a closing argument. "I'm not here to waste time, Your Honor," she said, her voice firm, carrying the cadence that had shaken larger courtrooms than this. "I'm here for justice, not bias, and what's happening in this room violates every principle of fairness." Thornton opened his mouth to interrupt, but Jasmine raised her hand slightly, a gesture both respectful and resolute. "Before you stop me, let me introduce myself. I'm Jasmine Crockett, a civil rights lawyer, who's fought injustice from Dallas to D.C. I've won cases they said couldn't be won, and I won't let this bias slide." The courtroom erupted in stunned silence. Nia Jackson stopped breathing, her pen dropping onto her notebook, eyes wide as if witnessing a shock. Malik Turner snapped his head up, mouth slightly open, eyes blazing. Carla Ruiz stopped typing, her hands frozen mid-air, her face showing clear astonishment. Derek Vaughn, for the first time, tilted his head toward Jasmine, a faint smirk, as if he'd been waiting for this. Thornton froze, his face shifting from red to pale, his hand trembling on the gavel. What did you say? He stammered, his voice losing its authority. Jasmine seized the moment, stepping closer to the bench, her voice rising like a speech. Your Honor, I was fined $750 for being 5 minutes late, no explanation allowed. Mr. Turner was fined 4 times his original charge, his evidence ignored. Miss Morales was dismissed, despite a clear system error, but another defendant, later than me, faced nothing. Under Texas law, Section 21.002, every individual has the right to a fair trial, regardless of race. You misapplied the contempt of court rule, and I have enough evidence to prove it. She held up her phone, as if it contained a vault of documents, actually her detailed notes. I've recorded everything, your words, how you cut off Mr. Turner, how you smiled at the white defendant. This isn't just a personal error, it's a pattern, and as a lawyer, I'm obligated to report any bias to the Texas Judicial Commission. Her words were like hammer strikes, not of wood but of truth, echoing through the room. Thornton tried to regain composure, banging his gavel repeatedly, but the sound was weaker now. Miss Crockett, if you have an issue, file a formal complaint, he shouted, his voice shaky. This court doesn't tolerate baseless accusations. Jasmine tilted her head, a subtle smile on her lips. I will, Your Honor, but I'll also ensure everyone in this room, Mr. Turner, Miss Morales, and others, is treated fairly. Justice isn't just for some. The courtroom stirred. Nia clapped spontaneously, sparking a few claps from the corners. Malik smiled, the first time since entering, his eyes saying thank you. Rosa Morales gripped her daughter's hand tighter, her shoulders straightening. Carla Ruiz bowed her head, but her eyes glistened, a silent support. Derek Vaughn gave a slight nod, as if finding new respect. Thornton's face burned, his hand clutching the gavel, as if to break it. Order, he yelled, but his voice was lost in the changed air. Jasmine returned to her seat, amid the room's gazes, no longer curiosity, but admiration mixed with hope. No one spoke, but the silence roared agreement. She sat, opened her phone, and added a line to her growing notes. Thornton, stunned by my identity, evasive when provoked, lost control when challenged. She knew she'd done what no one dared, shaken the power Thornton wore daily. Nia Jackson looked at her, eyes blazing with an unspoken question. What's next? Jasmine responded with a confident nod, no words needed. In that moment, Thornton banged his gavel, calling the next case, but his voice had changed. Still the familiar tone, but now slower, shakier, lacking its usual certainty. This feeling wasn't new to Jasmine. She'd faced a similar judge in Bowie County, another who thought he was above the law, but she'd won by exposing the truth, and this time would be no different. She bowed her head, texting her colleague, "Prep documents. Thornton case. We're bringing it to light." The courtroom stayed quiet, but the air had shifted. Her earlier declaration, that she was a civil rights lawyer, and would report Judge Edgar Thornton to the Texas Judicial Commission, was a direct hit. Thornton was stunned, his usual arrogance gone. Nia clapped softly, as a sign of support. Malik Turner gave a slight smile, and Carla Ruiz, always silent, now couldn't hide her approving glance. She paused in the hallway, sunlight streaming through the glass, onto her navy suit. Jasmine opened her phone, reviewing her notes, a detailed list of Thornton's actions, from fining her $750, to interrupting Malik, to leniency with Nathan Reed. Each line was a brick, and she was building a bigger case. She sent a follow-up email to her colleague, Dr. Lena Harper, who joined her in winning civil rights cases in Bowie County. Lena, need help analyzing court data. Thornton shows a clear bias pattern. I have notes. Need more records. She hit send. Resolve surging. Back in the courtroom, she'd promised Malik and others that justice would be served. That promise wasn't just words, it was a duty. Jasmine found a quiet corner near the exit, calling a contact at the Texas Judicial Commission, Chief Counsel Marcus Tate. "Marcus, I just witnessed blatant racial bias at Dallas City Court," she said, her voice low but sharp. Judge Thornton finds Black and Latino people harsher than whites. I have initial evidence. We need an investigation now. Marcus agreed to review, asking for a detailed report within 24 hours. Jasmine nodded, though he couldn't see, and hung up. She returned to the courtroom for more information, her eyes catching Nia Jackson near the door, still clutching her notebook. "Miss Nia, right?" Jasmine asked, a warm smile. Nia nodded, eyes lighting up. "What you did in there, it was incredible," Nia said, her voice trembling. "I want to help." Jasmine nodded, exchanging numbers. "I need someone to document what happened today, every detail. You up for it?" Nia nodded firmly, as if given the most important task of her life. Malik Turner emerged from the courtroom, his eyes brighter, though still weary. "Miss Crockett," he said, pausing near her, "thank you for speaking up. I didn't think anyone would." Jasmine placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice firm. "You deserve to be heard, Malik. I'll need you to recount your case details." "Okay, we'll fix this." Malik nodded, exchanging contact info, his eyes gaining strength. As Jasmine prepared to leave, Carla Ruiz appeared in the hallway, arms full of papers. "Miss Crockett," Carla whispered, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. I have something you need." She handed over a worn notebook, filled with notes on Thornton's cases over 3 years, unfair penalties, mostly against Black and Latino people. "I can't stay silent anymore," Carla murmured. Jasmine took the notebook, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Carla. This is a big step." Carla nodded faintly, hurrying off as if afraid of being caught. Jasmine sat on a hallway bench, flipping through Carla's notebook. Numbers danced before her. Turner, Black, $50 ticket. Fined $200. Alvarez, Latino, parking error, fined $150. Brooks, White, speeding, reduced from $100 to $50. Page after page, a pattern as clear as daylight. She photographed each one, sending them with an email to Lena and Marcus, adding evidence from court staff. Need analysis ASAP. She stood, feeling the weight of responsibility. She recalled a Dallas case, defending a Black youth wrongly fined for a traffic error, and how she'd forced the court to publicly apologize. Thornton wasn't just a judge, he was a symbol of a system needing change. Jasmine texted Nia, "Post today's story on social media, but keep my name out for now. Use #JusticeInDallas." She knew the power of community, and she needed it now. Minutes later, her phone buzzed. Nia had posted a short piece on X about a brave lawyer confronting bias in Dallas court. The #JusticeInDallas began trending, with a few sharing similar Thornton stories. Jasmine smiled, but didn't stop. She called Derek Vaughn, the quiet bailiff from the courtroom. "Derek," she said when he picked up, "I know you saw what happened. You ready to speak out?" Derek hesitated, then sighed. I'll think about it. But you're right, this has been wrong too long." Jasmine pocketed her phone, eyes drifting to the glass doors where Dallas sunlight blazed. She thought of Oak Cliff, of her mother, who always said, "Justice doesn't come free, you have to take it." Thornton might think he was untouchable, but he didn't know the strength of a community rising. With her notes, Carla's notebook, and statements from Malik, Nia, maybe Derek, Jasmine was building an undeniable case. After revealing her identity as a civil rights lawyer, and vowing to report Judge Edgar Thornton, Jasmine Crockett had started an unstoppable machine. Carla Ruiz's notebook, potential testimony from Malik Turner and Nia Jackson, the call with Derek Vaughn, and the social media post with #JusticeInDallas, all pieces of a larger case. But Jasmine knew that to take down someone like Thornton, she needed the whole community behind her. She checked her phone, seeing #JusticeInDallas spreading fast. Nia's X post now had hundreds of shares, with comments recounting similar experiences at Thornton's court. "I was fined $300 for a parking error, while others paid $50. He never lets Black people finish talking." Jasmine gave a subtle smile, unsurprised. Thornton had left a trail of injustice too long, and now the truth was rising. She got a text from Lena Harper, her lawyer colleague. Got Carla's notebook. My team's analyzing court data. Looks like Thornton targets Black and Latino people 3 times more than whites. Send more testimony if you have it. Jasmine replied instantly, Malik and Nia will provide. Reaching out to Derek Vaughn. She knew Lena would turn numbers into a sharp weapon, but she needed more witnesses to solidify the case for the Texas Judicial Commission. That afternoon, Jasmine met Malik at a small Oak Cliff cafe, a few miles from the courthouse. Malik sat across, twisting his coffee cup, eyes still weary, but brighter than before. I'm not sure I can help much, he said, voice low. I'm just a driver, not used to this stuff. Jasmine leaned forward, her voice warm but firm. Malik, your story is evidence. You were fined $200 for a $50 error. No explanation. That's not your fault. It's Thornton's. You tell it. I'll handle the rest. Malik nodded slowly, agreeing to give a formal statement. For you I'll do it, he said, a faint smile breaking through. Meanwhile, Nia texted, talked to some law school friends. They want to hold a protest outside the courthouse this weekend. What do you think? Jasmine replied immediately. Great job, Nia. Go big, but stay safe. I'll be there. She knew the power of a crowd, not just for pressure, but to remind Thornton that justice doesn't sleep. She texted Marcus Tate at the Judicial Commission. Data from Lena's coming. Got new witnesses. When does the commission launch a formal investigation? Marcus responded, earliest next week. Send everything you have. We need real ammo. By evening, news about Thornton hit local media. A Dallas Morning News article headlined, Bias Allegations at City Court. A lawyer speaks out. Though it didn't name Jasmine, it cited #Justice in Dallas and described a pattern of unfair fines. Thornton, feeling the heat, issued a statement via email to the press. I've always run my court with fairness. These allegations are baseless and personal. Jasmine read it on her phone, shaking her head. Baseless, she muttered. You'll see what's based. That weekend, Nia and her friends' protest took place outside Dallas City Courthouse. Over 100 gathered, holding signs, Justice doesn't see color, and End Court Bias. Jasmine stepped onto a makeshift podium, megaphone in hand, voice booming. We're here for justice, not prejudice. Courts are for protection, not oppression. Let our voices rise. The crowd cheered, chanting #Justice in Dallas. Malik stood at the edge, smiling genuinely for the first time. Nia live-streamed, drawing thousands of views. But pressure wasn't only on Thornton. Jasmine received anonymous emails. Stay out of court business. You'll regret this. She deleted them, but a heaviness lingered. She called her mom in Oak Cliff, her voice a cool breeze over the phone. Baby, the guilty always fear the light. Keep doing right. I'm here. Jasmine smiled, regaining focus. Threats weren't new. They just proved she was on the right path. Meanwhile, Thornton was summoned to a closed meeting with the Judicial Commission. Marcus informed Jasmine, they're reviewing Thornton's record. Carla's notebook is gold. It shows he fined Black and Latino people 3 times more than whites over 3 years. Malik and Nia's statements will strengthen it. Jasmine nodded. Mentally, she texted Derek Vaughn again. Derek, it's time. Will you speak? Derek replied, after hours. I'll meet you. Don't want to stay silent anymore. She sat at her home desk, the lamp illuminating Carla's notebook. Each page told a story of Malik, Rosa, and dozens more. Jasmine recalled her words from a Black Lives Matter case. Justice isn't a destination, it's a road. Thornton might think he held power, but that road was now filled with people like her. Nia, Malik and Derek, ready to walk. She drafted a final email for the day to Lena. Get ready. Thornton's about to face the truth. 3 months after Judge Edgar Thornton resigned, the city had changed. Reforms at Dallas City Courthouse, anti-bias training, independent oversight, legal aid were spreading. And today, Jasmine was invited to speak at the launch of a new judicial training program named Fair Justice. The crowd before her, from law students to Oak Cliff residents, clapped as she stepped to the podium, megaphone in hand. "Justice isn't a gift dropped from above," Jasmine said, her voice echoing with cadence. "It's a fire we must light, a road we must walk. I stand here for Malik, Rosa, Carla, Derek, and everyone who dared to speak. Justice isn't just for some, it's everyone's right." The crowd roared, some waving #Justice in Dallas signs, now a symbol of change. Nia Jackson, in the front row, live streamed, her eyes beaming with pride. Jasmine looked down, spotting Malik Turner in the crowd, wearing a crisp shirt for the first time, his smile radiant. Next to him was Rosa Morales, gripping her daughter's hand, her eyes now full of hope. Carla Ruiz stood beside Derek Vaughn, both clapping lightly, as if they couldn't believe they'd helped topple Thornton's wall of injustice. Jasmine smiled, her heart warm. This wasn't just her victory, it belonged to them all. That evening, Jasmine returned to her mom's house in Oak Cliff, the smell of cornbread wafting through. She sat with her mother, who held her hand, voice low and warm. "You made me proud, but don't stop. There are more Thorntons out there." Jasmine nodded, reflecting on her journey. From her days as a public defender in Bowie County, facing arrogant judges, to the Thornton case, she'd learned justice was never easy, but always worth it. "I'll keep going, Mom," she said, her eyes bright as the Dallas lights outside. Her phone buzzed, an email from Nia. "Miss Jasmine, I got into SMU law. I'll study to fight like you." Attached was a photo of Nia, holding her acceptance letter, grinning. Jasmine replied, "Congrats, Nia. Do better than me." Another text from Malik arrived. "Miss Crockett, my ticket's been cleared. Thank you, really." She smiled, texting back, "You deserved it, Malik. Stay strong." She knew these wins, however small, were the foundation for bigger change. Reforms from the Thornton case didn't stop in Dallas. Lena Harper called last week, saying 3 other Texas courts adopted anti-bias training, using Dallas as a model. Jasmine was invited to teach a course at SMU Law, where she met students like Nia, eager to use the law for justice. She stood before them, recounting Thornton, Carla's notebook, Malik's hopeful eyes, each story a lesson that change starts with one voice. She looked out her mom's window, Dallas lights twinkling, like tiny fires. Thornton was gone, but his legacy, a flawed system, still needed fixing. Jasmine gripped her coffee mug, recalling her words today, "Justice is a road." She'd walked that road with Malik, Nia, Carla, Derek, and Oak Cliff, and she'd keep walking, because every courtroom, every voice, deserved to be heard. She stood, opened her briefcase, and prepared for a new case. Dallas was waiting, and Jasmine Crockett was ready, with an unwavering vow. Every court, every person, deserves justice. The story of Jasmine Crockett, in Racist Judge Finds Jasmine Crockett, only to discover she's a legal genius, reflects pressing issues of racial injustice and power in today's U.S. judicial system. Through Jasmine's journey at Dallas City Courthouse, from being unfairly fined by Judge Edgar Thornton for tardiness to uncovering his pattern of bias against Black and Latino people, the story portrays a persistent reality. Racial prejudice seeps into rulings, from minor traffic tickets to larger cases. Jasmine's persistence in noting details, challenging Thornton with Texas law, and rallying the community through #Justice in Dallas shows the power of collective action and truth. Carla Ruiz's notebook, testimony, from Malik Turner and Nia Jackson and Derek Vaughn's shift from silence to speaking out underscore that injustice crumbles only when people confront it. The eventual reforms, anti-bias training, independent oversight, reflect real-world needs for systemic change, like the Black Lives Matter movement, or ongoing judicial reforms. The lesson for real life: don't stay silent before injustice, whether it's a $750 fine or a biased system. Learn from Jasmine, document evidence, like her notes on Thornton, find allies, like her connections with Malik, Nia, and Carla, and use your voice, whether through social media, like #Justice in Dallas, or directly, like at protests. In today's U.S., where inequality persists, every action, from speaking up at a local court to joining community movements, can spark justice. Be persistent like Jasmine, because change starts with one person, but spreads through us all. Subscribe to the channel to pursue justice like Jasmine Crockett, and thank you for joining this journey for fairness. See you in the next video, where we keep shining a light on truth.